All right. So, hi, everybody. As you know, or you may not know, this is Dr. T. I am Dr. Tameca Harris-Jackson, and I am the CEO and a therapist with Hope and Serenity Health Services. And Hope and Serenity Health Services is a mental health agency located in Central Florida. And our entire goal is to help enhance the well-being of women and people who are connected and loving up on women. And so periodically I come to you with some really good interviews, some tidbits to share with you. And I'm so thrilled about who I have with us today and our conversation today. Today I have with us Michelle Lloyd and MiShara Bianca, and we are going to have a real good conversation about parenting, motherhood, parenting teams, all those things we're going to talk about. So, without further ado, I'll let these wonderful ladies introduce themselves. Let's start with MiShara Bianca. If you could please introduce yourself to the people.
So, hi everyone. I'm Michelle Bianca. I'm a certified life coach. I work with women specifically to help them rediscover who they are, reimagine the possibilities in life, and then transform their lives to meet the life that they desire. I'm born and raised in Florida, and I'm a mother of two adult children at this point. My youngest will be 21 next week, and my oldest is 27. So that's who I am.
Oh, all right. Okay. Get that background. Awesome. Thank you, MiShara. And Michelle.
Sure. So Michelle Lloyd, actually a licensed social worker. So clinician, have been doing this for about 25 years. Started this in Chicago, and now I've been in Florida since 2009. Um, Born and raised in Puerto Rico and in the Virgin Islands. So worked with different cultures, very excited to work with women of different culture, different backgrounds. But I also to work with the entire family, eventually and bridge everybody. Um, Focusing a lot in emotional healing is one of my passions. Again, bridging and making connections and focusing more on improving quality of life. I know that a lot of us might potentially give up on some of these things. So I'm like a cheerleader, I feel like, for mental health and for well-being.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, mother of one. He is actually 19. I feel like he's 27 actually sometimes, but he's 19. He will be 20 in January. So I have a one college student boy.
Wow.
It's been a joy. It's been a joy.
Oh,
I'm excited to talk about the experience and to share with other people. Um, an incredible journey. Let's talk about it. Okay.
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in. So, my first question for both of you is if you could just describe to someone, imagine that you were in an elevator and you're going from the first floor to the 12th floor in an elevator, and someone asks you, what was your journey like, or what has your journey been like as a mom? What would you say? How would you describe it?
Wow. Um, I guess I'll go first. So we'll have to start by saying because it paints the picture. So I had my first child when I was 17.
Mm.
So that brings a different experience of motherhood. So if we're speaking about going on the elevator floor from 1 to 12, I was at 12 very quickly, 12 being I'm not ready, I'm not prepared, and this is not what I thought I was going to be.
Mm.
In the beginning, because again, you're 17 years old, you're not really thinking about motherhood.
Mhm.
And so my journey of motherhood has kind of reflected that. I like to tell people that I grew up with my children. So there's that experience. But overall, it has been a I don't even know what to call it, an experience. It has been a different type of experience, but just because you don't have when you're 17, you don't really have any expectations of motherhood and journey. So
Mm.
at 40, I'm like, it has been a growth and learning and a challenging experience, but also because I was so young and not prepared for
Mhm.
it. So I think that is what my motherhood journey reflected, is a lot of just trying to really figure it out and make decisions based on where I was at the time. So I don't
Mhm.
really know if that answered the question, but
It
that's kind of my
does.
journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Powerful. And now you have two adults.
Two adults. Yes, 2 adults, and I'm looking back at it and now and I can be honest and say they're in their 20s, and so, again, when you're and I assume all moms go through this, but again, I had mine very young, so I'm not sure because at 17, you don't really talk to other moms who were momming, right?
Mhm.
But looking back now and having conversations with my children, I realized that they too, um grew with me, and so they have kind of confirmed that did good as a mother, raising them,
Mm.
that they didn't see the uncertainties or feel like it was all over the place. And both of them are, successful in my eyes, successful going to school and working as we want our children to do. And so now being able to have those conversations, they kind of provide that affirmation that I never received.
Yeah.
That Mom, you did a great job. So
Mm.
yeah.
That's
Mhm.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's
Michelle,
good.
how about you?
Sure. Mine was quite different. Actually, I was 29. So ready. I wanted that experience, but I wanted the husband and the house and the fence and the whole dream. So that didn't happen. When as I became pregnant, the partner said, "Oh no, I'm too busy for this, and you're on your own. You can kind of, choose to do this on your own or not do it at all." So I chose to do it on my own. I was ready. I wanted it. It's very sad and scared because I had this illusion of the family unit. So then became a single mom from pregnancy, actually, and had my career and had some experience and was already helping other mothers. So I felt like I had a lot of knowledge and that I know enough. So my experience was actually unlearning a lot of
Yeah.
the things because and I'm sure MiShara, you experience some of this too, that we learn so much from them, through them. They
Yes.
remind us, they help us remember things we've forgotten or how to even do things better in a upgraded way, So I feel like I had to unlearn a lot of things and then learn new things with my child. He was helping me even emotionally, how to forgive. I was so hurt and kind of like broken at that time once he was born, feeling that void of
Mm.
the partner and the support and what I was envisioning for myself. So it was like really realizing my strength
Mhm.
and the strength that I felt as a single mom. I was like in survival mode. We're in survival mode, but we're gonna do this. And it was still with a lot of hope and joy, but still that sadness. So I feel like I was growing, also learning, unlearning, learning, and healing as I'm being a mother. So it's
Mm.
been it's been quite a journey in that sense of like feeling wounded and at the same time I'm like, but I got this and I'm healing. And that healing still continues. Now he's in 19, almost 20, and we've had to do some of the healing together in his on his side. The abandonment issue is we're both feeling abandoned,
Mm.
in different ways. So we've had the opportunity to even do some healing, growing and healing together. And that's been amazing, very humbling experience.
Yeah.
Michelle, you said something that brought up two things for me. So one was you said they teach you. And so I like to think it was because I was so close to my children in age. There are times when they were certain ages where I can remember what my life was like. And so it triggered some things that I experienced at like 14 and 17 and those ages that required me to really dive in to do some healing because I didn't realize that I needed it until they got to that age. And I was like, "Sis, what is that?" Right. And
Mm.
then number two is you also said you have a son. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the other thing is I have a son and a daughter. And
Mm.
one thing I agree with you on is that when it comes to my daughter, the relationship is different. But it was something about with my son that required me to do some emotional healing that I didn't really realize. Um, and I don't know if that is because one, he's a male, and so I had my own abandonment issues there.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
two, they say it's something about a mother and a son's relationship that reflects the work or reflects what love is for a certain looks a certain
Mm,
way. And so just parenting and raising my son um changed me from what it was when I was working with my daughter. I know how to explain that, but there was a lot more emotional and self-reflection and things that came up with my son specifically. And I don't know if it's because he's the opposite sex, but I like to think that that has a lot to do with it. So that has been interesting as well, just working through that process, as you mentioned. So,
mm,
I bet just because of the boy, yes.
yeah,
Because as you speak, I'm like, I can feel it here, you know.
yeah, right.
Mhm. And it was abandonment issues, for
Hmm.
sure. You know, this is a male, and there's resentment towards males, but there's this need of healing, and there's so
Hmm.
many things. And not to be able to put it in words, actually, I could feel it, but I thank you for that, because that makes sense. You know,
Right.
some very deep, deep seated issues that are being healed there. Um, and I think he's aware of it. You know, as he got older, he's like, "Let
Yes.
me help her." You know, like with self-esteem and validation and worth coming from my son towards me. It's been,
Right.
mm.
wow, wonderful. Healing. All
Wow.
healing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
You both talked about this healing, and as you are raising your children, that it brought out in you that you realized that you had to do some healing, some work when you didn't know it before. Like your children brought it out of you. And I'm like, I'm in my mind, I'm circling this point, this period where what is that for you, if you remember, or if you have an idea about where you chose to move into healing space around that? Because I think where I've noticed where some parents struggle is the children, they will bring it out of you. You're like, oh, okay. You see the stuff coming up. But for some parents, it is, but I'm going to make you do X, Y, and Z because this is how I was raised. This is how I was brought up. So instead of like moving into a space of reflection and healing, it's more about trying to conform the situation for what the parent wants it to be, I guess. I'll give an example like, um, so let's say a parent recognizes that at a certain point their child makes them think about, as you mentioned, their own father not being present and the hurt and pain that comes with that. And so the way I hear you both talk about it, you get to a point where you realize, oh, okay, that's me stuff. And then you moved into doing something about that for yourself, whatever that might look like, where some parents may not realize that's me stuff. Instead, it becomes anger towards the child. Like,
Mhm.
you are just a reminder of no good, low down, dirty, and it becomes anger and punitive towards the child. And so I'm wondering, what was that for you? How did you know to transform that into what I need to heal me versus I need to take this out on my kid, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Big time. Big time. I think Is it okay if I don't know if there's turns. We just
No,
open.
go
Open.
ahead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, I give thanks to the way I was raised. I think that helps because I was actually raised by single mother also. My parents divorced when I was 3.5.
Mm,
That's the beginning of some of the big wounding there. So the way she dealt with us was very, very passive, very open. We were able to express our frustration and our emotions. She was also a teacher, 30 years. So she has some skills that helped me kind of start the healing as a child. But then with my son, I was able to recognize still how I was reacting to him. Actually, he looks so much like his dad, and there was some I was reacting to some of that very early on with mixed feelings. And I was terrified of what that could do to my son, what I could do to my son subconsciously, being angry. I could recognize it because I was so wounded. So
mm,
that was always there, that possibility of like, I don't want to mess this up because I know I'm hurt.
mm,
But the way that my mother dealt with her pain and her hurt, I was able to see how she compare and see, okay, we need to bring in love. We need to bring in listening. Let's not start blaming or, disciplining. Let's listen. Let's give someone, in this case, my son, a voice. And then I was able to hear what he needed and get engaged in that healing process. But it was awareness, a lot of awareness right away. Like this is very fragile and I can project, I can just blame, I can do so much if I'm not careful. So
mm,
I want to give that some of that props to my mom that helped the way she dealt with our experience. I was able to do similar with my son. Um, but also when I tell you that, I don't know, I feel spiritually that the children that come through us, it's not an accident. We receive what we need for growth.
Wow.
I believe that. I
Wow.
don't know. They say that we choose our parents, y'all.
mm,
In the spirit world. So I believe this was just an intervention because it's been so to the point and intentional, like we're both healing here. We're here, he came and we're all healing. We're coming to heal and upgrade some of this for future. Does that make sense?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just really feel like, wow, this is right on. This is like, well, thank you, Angel, to come to my life and let's continue this journey together. And this is good for everybody, even for his father.
Right.
Now at 19 years later, he's healing and learning through his son, through our son.
Mm,
So it's even gone, and this is fathers in another country. And it's like, well, it's been difficult, but little by little, the healing has even included that. Who's not even here with us physically.
yeah.
Wow. Mhm. Wow. Um, so for me, the healing part, so I can back up and say, so I was also raised by a single mom. Well, actually, I was raised by two moms, and then I lived with my grandmother. So I was raised in a house of very, very strong-willed, strong, independent. We don't do a lot of emotions. We don't really have time for, Black women.
Yes.
So that's always been how I've operated. But the one thing that I did know is in my home, there were times where I didn't feel like I had a voice. And I didn't understand my mom, just to be honest. Like on the at this point in life, I understand that she was still dealing with her own things, but I did there were, being young, I didn't understand. So the one thing that I always knew was that I wanted to have a relationship with my children that was very open and honest. And I wanted them to be able to come and speak to me about anything. So it wasn't necessarily me doing the healing work. It was that in itself saying, I know I'm in survival mode because I was trying to survive and raise children. And I don't want my children to not have um, a healthy relationship with me or not be able to communicate with me. So with or without me going to counseling, because I was in and out for years, it was important to me that we had that space. And so um a lot of my healing didn't really start to come until my children were adults. meaning is when I was able to recognize,
Mm.
oh, you might need to talk to somebody about that or work on this or, those kind of things, because I was just coming out of survival mode. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think I might have did that around 38. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm 43 now. All right. So my kids were 18 by then is when I realized that there's some healing that needs to be done. But from day one, when I found out that I was pregnant, I knew that whatever resources or whatever I had to do to make it so that I can be what I could consider a good mom. And for me, that was open and honest communication. I would do that. And so that is what I led with. That is still how I lead. So the healing for me really, it came in increments and spurts. Like, my child is now starting her menstrual cycle and that triggered something for me. And I was like, oh, this might be related, maybe, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think for me it was like a linear feeling going on. It was kind of I know I need this for them, so I'm gonna make sure that they do this, and then I'll figure me out as it comes up. And that's
Mm.
that's how I've been dealing, for the most part. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. What's so powerful that I'm hearing as a theme for both of you is that it was it was a learning that you took from your parents. However that learning was, you took a piece of learning and you passed that on in your parenting with your children, whether it was, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do this, whatever
Hmm.
it was, you picked that up. So that's very, very powerful. And it says a lot about when we talk about, especially in communities of color, when we talk about legacy, and like the lineage of healing, the legacy of healing, and what that means, how as we heal in each generation heals, which is powerful and beautiful, and there's no age limit to that. So whether you are 38 recognizing, let me do something about that, your adult children are still your children, and they
Right.
benefit from that healing at that point in your life, and then they pass that on, and your role models, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. So the legacy of healing brings forth legacies of healing, which is phenomenal. And then something else that you said, Mashara, made me think about when you said, let me take care of them and I'll worry about me later. And that's
Right.
another thing that I hear come up with parents a lot.
Right.
um, Again, I work primarily with mothers, and I've been working with mothers for 20 some odd years. And I hear that over and over again. Take care of the children, I'll take care of me later. And so moms tend to go on the back burner, and not just moms, it's your primary caregivers. They go on the back burner and the back burner and the back burner over and over until they are back burnt out. Like,
Hmm. Yes.
so, and I see y'all nodding your heads. And so I'm
Hmm.
just kind of like, just want to open it up to hear your perspectives of what was that like for you? Did you have moments of change where you said, I'm not going to be on the back burner anymore? Are you still on the back burner? Yeah, let's open that up.
Wow.
Yeah. So definitely, again, I'll say there was a point when my son turned 14 years old, and my daughter was graduating high school. So I have to, again, I literally was living in survival mode. Like, we gonna get through, we gotta make it through, we
Mhm,
just gotta keep going, right? So
mhm,
she's graduating and he's turning 14 going to high school. And in that moment is when I had I can't, I'm tired. Right. I've done this one over here. We made it through. Okay. We've made it through. And now I have this 14-year-old and I'm like, I can't. I don't have the the capacity, I just can't do this. And at that same time is when I like to say I had you can call it a breakdown, a spiritual awareness, whatever. All
mhm,
happened at the same time.
Wow.
You got to get some help and you got to speak to someone because, again, you were carrying the past 19 years of suppressed things with you, just trying to prove everybody wrong in the fact that you were a young mom, right? Trying to just show that you're not going to be the statistic, you're not going to fall into the generational curses, you're not going to do all of the things that people had said you would do. Kind of took a toll on me at that point.
Wow.
And so that for me was my moment when I said we gotta do something because we need to talk to somebody and get some help. And also, you don't feel like you have anything left to give. I was
Mm.
exhausted. And so, I was able to kind of to work through that. But then I also at that same time also realized that there were some emotional things going on with my son that we had not addressed as well. Right. So it was a lot of healing during that year. A lot of work that had to be done and continues to be done. But it was just for me, I think I don't know, like somebody, I don't know if you've ever heard, but you just wake up one day and you're just like, this, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. It's like a second part of me showed up and said, hey girl, how you doing? Remember me? Because it's like lost
Yeah.
and just confused. So
Yeah.
um I think that was for me the starting of it was I think the transition of you now have an adult daughter, and now you have a child that's going in male child that's going into high school, and I was trying to make calls and see if he could go stay with it was a whole thing. So
Mhm.
and that was when I had the moment where I was like, all right, we gotta figure out what's really, really, really going on and get some help, not just for me, but for him
Yeah.
as well. So
Mm. Mm. Thank
Oh,
you for
wow.
that.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
very helpful to hear because I'm like, oh, wow, I wasn't the only one, and I only have that one. And it's interesting because it was around 14. When he was 13, 14, I was like, can I get a break?
yes,
Well, I did
yes,
half of it already,
yes,
I was exhausted.
yeah.
And also at that time, I became aware of his needs, emotional needs, because that's the age actually. But it was way before that, and I had kind of pushed it away. I remember maybe at age 10, my mom or my sister saying, do you think he needs therapy? Seems depressed. And he was coming back from visiting that was said to me. And he had expressed anger, like my dad, this and that, or, they were on vacation and, getting to know his dad at age 10 or 9, actually younger. That was the first time that he came and expressed anger. I don't like, certain things and he doesn't listen. And there's a language barrier with them. My son is not that well versed in Spanish and that, so there was some barriers, but I pushed it away. I was too tired, too overwhelmed. I'm doing therapy with other people. My son will be fine. He'll, I got it. But by the time I'm exhausted, I realize he's exhausted too. We're both
Mhm,
exhausted emotionally.
Mm.
I'm exhausted all through, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of it. And he's really struggling now with his own. So that was an aha moment. Also, I started getting a lot of spasm. My body was shutting down at that point too with stress. Um, so that was again another a moment of, like you said, an aha moment. I don't know if it was a kind of spiritual moment too, like coming to terms with myself and what I need and what he needs at that time. 14 years later. And I did. I put myself last way back then, whatever
mhm,
he needed, whatever everybody needed. I'm a therapist. So it's like give, 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 give. And to my son, for sure, it was all about giving. And I had not learned boundaries yet. I think
mhm.
that was the beginning of like, I learned
Yeah.
boundaries today, and I still fought them. I think I was kind of call myself an empath and having to learn my boundaries, having to learn for real giving too much, way too much to everybody. And actually, my son helped me see that. I remember him saying things maybe at age 9. You like your clients more than me. You
Mm.
treat them, you're so patient with them. You talk to them so nicely. And then you treat them the same way. And we had a
Yes.
really close relationship. I'm pretty loving and huggy, dubby, and all of that, but he could still pick up and my annoyance and my frustrations with him and my clients will get the best of me. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I was dumping on him and on myself. And
Mm.
in the home was tense and tired,
Mhm.
and it was me not having that boundary of like, how much do I give myself first, actually? Because forget it, doing that first, that was a no-no.
Mhm.
The culture was also telling me growing up as a Black Puerto Rican, the children, you have to take care of the children and you sacrifice. And the idea that, I don't know, in back home in Puerto Rico, a woman that suffers is a good woman.
Mm.
She knows that's a good, strong woman. She suffers, she
Mm,
doesn't
wow.
complain.
Mm.
Look how she suffers. Wow. And it's admirable. So I internalized that the more I suffer, the more I do, I'm a good
Wow.
woman. I'm a good mom. I'm worthy.
Mm.
But I
Wow.
was in so much pain. I was exhausted. So that was my aha moment and I'm still learning. I'm 50, guys. I'm gonna be 51 in November this year. And my learning continues, especially with
Absolutely.
boundaries. And it's a reminder. My body talks to me still. I'm like, okay, let me shut it down, take a nap.
Mhm.
But I still struggle
Absolutely.
with that. Some, the idea that I have to keep going. This is my lunch. But it was my fault because I double booked today. It's like, yeah, let's do all of this. So I'm real, I'm still learning how I have to, Dr. T knows,
Right. Right,
boundaries
right.
and self-care.
Mhm.
Still learning.
Michelle, you said something when you said, as a Black Puerto Rican, the suffer is what makes you who you are. And I'm not Puerto Rican, but as a Black woman, I think that we have been taught that struggle is what makes progress, number one, and number two, that suffrage is what we're supposed to experience.
Mhm.
And I agree with you when you say you just kept going, because I mean that's what it looks like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
That,
yeah. It
that's
was
what it
almost
looks
like a
like.
badge.
Yeah, that's what
I
it looks
almost,
like,
this gives me goosebumps.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah,
badge
that's
of
what it looks
honor.
like. Yeah,
Mhm.
A suffering woman. Wow, how
yeah.
admirable.
That's what makes you a strong Black woman, is the
Mm.
suffering. That's what makes you strong, right? Is the
Mhm.
suffering part of
I don't want it no
it.
more. I don't like it.
Yeah. And that's
Just
Right.
absolutely. So I agree with you when you say even though I was clawing and surviving, it was that part of it that made me feel like I'm doing this motherhood
Mm,
thing, because this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to struggle. It's supposed to be if you're not doing the suffering, then you're not doing it right,
wow.
Mm.
right? Because that's what it looked like,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I should say, as the way we internalize it is so, yeah, I'm doing it right. And that's what people say. Yeah, she take care of those kids. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
she's gonna take care of those kids, and she gonna give them her last, and
Mhm.
all of the things that people say to
Yeah.
confirm that you're doing a good job as a single struggling mom.
And you know what? And if you can do that without even complaining,
Oh,
that's a
oh
bigger
yeah,
medal.
yeah,
And she
yeah.
doesn't even complain.
She doesn't. She
Wow.
does
She
all
doesn't
that
even
by
need
herself.
help. She
Yeah,
doesn't need
she
help.
does it. Oh my God,
Oh,
that is it. That she doesn't need help because we're not asking for
she's
help, because
good.
we don't want it to be viewed as complaining,
Mhm.
right? So I agree now.
Actually, they'll ask us for help. Can you take my
Right.
kids to school with yours? And then it's like, well, bring them on. And here I am
Yeah,
adding to
I
my
got
plate.
everybody.
So I'm the
Absolutely.
strong one.
I'm gonna show up. And then I think another thing you also said that made me think is, I think sometimes there's also an idea that healing is a one-time thing, right? Like it's a certain point and then you're healed. And
Mm.
what I'm hearing you say is the same thing for
Oh,
me. Is I'm still in the process. There are times where being a mom, am still struggling, and my children are grown, right? Because now I'm thinking about, did I do enough? Was that really
Mm.
oh my
or
goodness.
could I have
Yes.
done something different, right? And then with my own healing things, again, as they're 21 and 27, I'm thinking about my life and where I was at 21 and 27, and things
Wow.
come up, and I'm like, I don't think we ever addressed that. I don't think we ever dealt with that. So now here we are, sitting
Mm.
in a therapist's office talking about those things. So I say that to say that healing isn't just a one-time thing, right? It is a progression, and it's continuous.
Yes.
Um, and
Mm.
so there isn't a specific age where you stop doing the healing as a mom, right? Most people think that my children are grown, they're in college, and they're off on their own. Then that brings a whole nother set of challenges because now it's just you by yourself, and now you got to sit with you
Yeah,
and all of the things that you did not heal,
that's right.
right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. That was a meal right there. What you all just shared. And I can just imagine those watching this, many of them being so connected with what you're saying and resonating with what you say, especially to the piece of so many pieces, and including the piece about the culture. Black Puerto Rican, Black woman, strong Black woman, that trope and how you have to carry that. It is very common, almost the expectation when you see another Black woman, that is like, hey girl, how you doing, child? You know, if you're not leading with the child, I mean, you're not suffering. And if you're not suffering,
Right.
then what are you doing? You
Right.
lazy. What are you doing?
We don't
Um,
have what they call a soft error.
yeah, mm,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
that little hashtag.
So
What's that?
that
Um,
went us.
yeah, right, right. And as mothers, again, it's that expected you had the children, so you do it. It's expected that you do it on your own because
Mm,
nobody told you to have them. Nobody told you to do. So I hear that often, the weight. I don't want to inconvenience other people because these are my
Mhm.
children.
mm,
These are my kids. So I don't want to ask anyone. And then if you ask someone, then it feels like a burden if they, huff a little bit too much or what have you. So you're like, never mind, I
Don't even
got
worry about it.
it.
I got
Right.
it.
Don't
It's
worry
all
about it.
good.
I got it. I'm gonna do
You,
for mine. I'm gonna show up for
that
mine.
eyebrow raised the wrong way. Don't even worry about it.
Right. Right. Don't even worry about it. I won't ask you again. I'm fine. I got it. Yeah, it is all of that. It's all of that. And at the same time, we give out these messages. They say, ask for help. You
Mm,
don't have to do it on your own. Ask for help. But then when someone asks for help, you don't get that same response, right? So yeah, it's tough. It's a very tough balance to carry. And again, especially bringing in that culture's piece. And the other piece that you just talked about so well is that your children are also going through at the same time.
mhm.
So you're navigating, you're learning. Every time you do it is the first time you've done it. So you're doing it for the first time with them. They're learning with you. They need healing as well. What what ways did you find that helped your children or continue to help your children as they are going through their healing, especially the teenage years, where though that middle school teenage era where the things I often hear, the hygiene is horrible. They're not brushing their teeth, they're not taking a shower, they're not doing some of the basics, they don't want to talk, they slamming doors. Now in this era, their faces in the phone and then on social media. It's just like parents feel like they're not even appreciated. That, their only job is to show up, feed the kid, but they're not even respected or appreciated. And the kid is often going through their own
Mm.
depression, anxiety, but they're not speaking about it. So as parents, what have you found has been helpful for your children during that era?
Well, I went experience all of that, the hygiene, the all of it, the depression, the apathy, the I know it all. I was so overwhelmed at that time. It's like, what am I doing wrong? I'm supposed to know how to help my child. And I see it's normalized, like, well, he's a teenager. My mom used to call it a virus, a virus, I think, like the teenage virus or something when I was growing up, like she just couldn't, she was just overwhelmed with it, so she just gave it a name, even with her own students. Like, she was a high school teacher. It's like, this is just the age of the virus. So I kind of dismissed it for a few years, like it will go away.
Mhm.
It's just a stage, a phase. But I was I guess, I think lucky enough, yes, for my son to actually say, I think I need to talk to someone.
Mm.
And this was actually when he was 16. So we went through those years and nice, it's gonna go away, it's a phase, it's fine. I was a little worried, but I was hoping that the virus would go away. And then I think because of the son of a therapist and we were so close, he had heard the value. I think he could see the value of therapy as he sees me talking about therapy and how it works and what I do. And he said, I think I need to talk to someone.
Mm.
And again, it was after a trip from Puerto Rico with his dad.
Mm.
And he was angry. And COVID had happened, and he was angry at the school system. And he was actually tapping into who's failing me. The school system failed me. You all failed me. My dad failed me. Eventually, then we went to therapy, and he told you I failed him too. So all these people are failing him. He was angry, but he was able to tap into one of the resources that he knew through me was therapy.
Mm.
It freaked me out. I was like, you need therapy? I was worried. I was like, he asked for it. Like, oh my God, this must be really, really bad. And then all the thoughts, how come I didn't see it? And I should have known, and da, da, da. But I took a deep breath and I said, of course, let's do this. And I smiled again. I was like, yeah, this is good. And I'm so proud of you. And I was actually happy also that the therapist that I chose right away, he said, Mom, I need you here for just for one or two sessions. And we actually, of the six, I was there three.
Mm.
Mm.
And that was so helpful for me because I was able to hear my son, what were some of the needs that he had and do it through therapy. But honestly, you guys, I think I had that bias of like, I don't need therapy. He doesn't need therapy. We're good. And
Mm.
I'm just so thankful that he was insightful enough to say, I'm ready. I need it. I want it. Let's do it. And
Mm.
even though it freaked me out, I was able to go through it because I knew at first I was in denial, like, no, my son, none of us need therapy. And I was able to bite that bullet, normalize it for my family. And I feel that it was the best thing we did at that time. There's been some other developments where he's needed therapy. Actually, last year at 18, he lost his best friend and he's still struggling with grief. And he's mentioned, I need therapy again, but this time he's kind of stalling. And I'm not pushing it because I know he has, I guess he's not ready right now, but he knows that it could help him. So that's under the radar. It's on the radar that we know that now therapy can help us, even
Mm.
the therapist and the son of a therapist, and I'm just so grateful for that insight that came from him because I was kind of like, nope, we don't need it. We're good. It was
Mm.
the best thing we did. And I know that now he does believe, he always did, but now he's been through that experience and knows, even tells friends that, well, maybe you can try therapy. Just do a few sessions, you know me, you know. And some of those issues are on the table now where he knows he's not all the way healed, but they're on the table.
Mhm.
Like he has anger issues with that and it's still current, but at least we brought it out and the work is still continuing. Actually, yeah, sometimes it feels like it's on pause because I can't push it. It's
Yeah.
whenever it's ready. I don't
Yeah.
know if that answer a question.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah.
Gosh, and again, our stories are so similar. And I don't know if it's because we have
I
boys
think
as well, but I will say that it was a little different for me, because I have two. So with my daughter, again, I had her very young, so she was right in there with me. So when I don't have the experience of her not ever feeling grateful or appreciative because she knew that she saw it, right? I also think that that might have made her be really hyper independent, which is another conversation. But so I never had the inappreciative how things with my kids because from it was always a honest conversation. This is what it has to be in order for this to function. I remember her being in about third or fourth grade and getting her first cell phone and her having to be able to like walk home from school because I had to work. And so our first conversation was, listen, I'm gonna either pay for you to go to daycare or I'm gonna have to pay for you to have a cell phone. I cannot do both. So I'm gonna need you to be responsible enough to make sure you get in the house and call me. If you can't do that, then the cell phone has to go. Right. So you see how our conversations
yes.
were. So she
Mhm.
knew from the beginning that this is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, when she got to be older, there were some things that I needed to that I put her in therapy for. But it was more so around of course, related to her dad not being there. So that triggered some things for me. And I was like, I wonder if she, so I put her in, therapy for that. And then, just some teenage stuff in general that she was open to. And I'm always, I mean, when I was younger, my parents put me in therapy too. So, it was kind of a thing where it's like, no, we've never not done that. So let's do that. Now they didn't go, but I did. So, so, but
Wow.
with my son, the same thing, Michelle, it was around that 8, 9, 10 experience with his dad for the summer coming back, and there were some changes, and I was like, something is different. Couldn't quite put my finger on it. Got him a therapist. His therapist came and was kind of, I was concerned because I'm an extreme extrovert. So again, there's that. And my son is an extreme introvert. And so I was concerned as some mental or social development issues. And the therapist was like, oh no, he's fine. He's just quiet. Right. But as he got older, um, I noticed, and I love that your son was able to vocalize to you that he needed therapy. For me, it was just little things that showed up. Like some of your other parents might have mentioned the lack of wanting involvement in school, the uninterest, the disengagement, just certain things. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but something needs to happen. And so then being able to put him in therapy allowed him to kind of be able to speak to someone, because I was specific in his therapist. I wanted a Black male because I felt like that's what was missing, because we don't have that I don't have any brothers or anything like that, right? So I really wanted him to be able to connect with a Black man specifically, to kind of help him move through what he was feeling. And so he has been able to do that to a certain extent. And so, like you said, there are times where it is on him because now he's an adult with his own insurance and that sort of thing. So even now, encouraging him, to go when he feels the need, or to share that I might have some concerns, is challenging to say, hey, remember you used to say, maybe we need to pick that back up, because as mom with no buy-in or investment where I can say, you're going to go to therapy, let's go. I have to now depend on him to say, I think I'm ready to go back. So I hope that answered the question, but I think it's very interesting how both of them started to need it after interactions with their other parent. Is interesting to me.
Very much so.
Right.
Yeah. And to me, it goes in line with we know from research and just kind of development and things like that, it goes in line with that. You see this parent and have connection with them, but it opens up a wound. It reopens a wound. When you don't see, you can kind of make up stories for yourself about the why, the what. There's also distance that's there, so you don't have to face it. But when you see that parent, uh, for that child, it becomes a question of, but why? Why are you not here? Why are you not taking care of me? They begin to reflect on the custodial parent that is doing all the things, and like, why does my mom, or why does, my caretaker have to do all these things? Why aren't you showing up at all? And it becomes anger.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot of anger and a lot of questioning about worth and self that the children go through. And it's one of the reasons that when I'm working with parents, especially with co-parenting, I'm very clear about talking about the parents both being present and working it through for not working through the relationship to stay together, but being amicable enough to stay in the child's life. It's it's painful. It's absolutely painful for the child to have another parent that just doesn't, it appears they don't want to have anything to do with them, like nothing at all. Because the child will start to question why. What is it about me? And especially if that other parent is in another relationship and connected with other children, because then that child is like, so you can show up for other people. You can parent other children. You can show love. You can do all those other things. So really, it's me. and what is it about me? So I'm not a parent, but I used to work in foster care for quite a while. And those are the types of things that I would see when the child would go see their biological parent, and that biological parent is in relationship and is parenting other children and being sweet to somebody else's children, and their biological child is in foster care or is in the care of a
Mm.
caregiver.
Yeah.
And it just rips the wound. And we knew all the time that once that child had visitation, we were starting over. It was almost like we had to start over because the behaviors would become so intense. So it's in line with what you two talked about with your children visiting the other parent and coming back with so much anger and so
Yes.
much hurt and so much pain. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for putting that in perspective too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Because
It's
now
so
it makes sense.
validating. Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even some anger towards us, it's just so mixed, and so many whys, and it's not fair. And yeah, it's just so entangled, and it does go into adulthood. It is that healing process continues. Now we're 19, and it's like, yeah, it's Father's Day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's real, that those feelings are so real. We can't dismiss them, and we
Yeah.
have to allow time for that healing. It's not going to be in 1 or 2 years.
Absolutely.
And it also depends on how is that other parent handling it. What are they doing? What are they talking about when they're together? Sometimes it's really destructive. And the healing that is happening over here is like it crumbles. And then we have to come back and let's start over. Not start over, but let's continue, at
Right.
19. And it's just so much.
It
Gotta
is a
remember
lot.
that. So it's like it's not done. The journey's not over.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And that's what I was speaking about. Michelle is saying, all right, so now you're 21. So I really can't, I can't really say you got to go to therapy. You're not on my insurance. However, you still need to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
right? It's still some work that needs to be done.
The issues are
Um,
showing.
right. When you were 17, I could say, come on, let's go. Get in the car, be going. I can't do that so much now. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the other things I'm so curious about, because you both mentioned it as well, is about mothers and their sons. And I hear this a lot, that the way that a mother has her relationship with her son is different than the way she has it with her daughter. And I know, Mashara, you said you have a son and a daughter. Michelle, you
Mhm.
have a son. I don't know how much you can speak to it, if it's something that can even be articulated, if it's just an energy feeling. But I know there's discourse in spaces about this, and daughters are usually mad, I can say, because they're like, mom will always favor her son. The boy, it is something about the magic of the son, and the daughter sometimes feel like I'm just here when it comes to mom. But I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if this is something
Mhm.
that you two say, yeah, there is something, or no, it's just a wives' tale. It's just a myth. What would you say?
Um, so again, because it's kind of so with my daughter again, because I had her so young, we literally like grew up, and I don't like to say like sisters, but it was a different type of, she was the first child, so it was a different type of expectation for her.
Mm,
And I'm not gonna even say that, just the things that any first child. So, as an eldest child, the responsibilities of being up with your mom is a single mom. There's some responsibilities that come with the eldest child. I hate to say that, but that's the truth of the matter,
Yeah.
right? You're
Mhm.
gonna have to watch out for your brother, this, that, and the third.
Mhm.
But I think specifically one thing that I know that is different with my son is my son, I think, is a reflection of the shadow of who I am, like my shadow self. Does that make sense? I don't really know how to articulate that. So he, he as a person has made me reflect on the shadow spaces in my life that I need to work on.
Mm.
It gave me, yeah, I could just say there were probably some issues that I had with men that I did not realize I had until I had a son, right? And so him being in my life has forced me to kind of address some things that I did not realize were there. So he had, I don't really know how to articulate it, but there are certain situations where I'm like, okay, maybe because it's a man, because he's a man,
Mm.
it not like, I see all the time where they're saying, oh, your son is your husband, and like none of those things. I'm not making him do like those kind of, take care of the house and you got to be responsible and that kind of stuff. But there are some spaces where I'm like, you might need to work on this personally because it brought up some things that I don't think came up with my daughter. But I
Mm.
think it was specifically because he's a guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes his personality and just who he is as a being reflect some things. They bring up some things that I was not aware of that I have internally. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what that means.
Mm.
Mm,
That's what that feels like, or this might be an extension. He has literally been brought into your life to kind of help you do some healing there
Mm.
that your daughter could not do because she's a girl, a woman.
Yeah.
wow.
And so um but I don't put that on him. I say, okay, so that's a trigger for you that you need to work on, or this has triggered you, or has brought up something that you were unaware of, and we need to work on that. But he allows me to see the spaces that I didn't know were there and that need to be healed. And I really believe it's because he's a male.
Mm.
So I don't know what the statistics say about all of that, but
Mhm.
that's been my experience.
Wow.
Let's see. Yeah. So with me, with having the only boy, I'm sure I would have had a lot of healing with a girl too in a different
Mhm.
way. I think we just
Right.
heal through, they come to teach and remind us and help us heal. I'm so convinced about that because I see it with other families where the children are just reminding us how to do things better if we pay attention. But like I said earlier with my son, I do feel that this was a healing experience right away from my experience with my father and just men in general, even and with his father, a sense of abandonment twice, my father and then his father, and to actually not give up on men
Right.
Mm.
because he's so wonderful and he just brings out the best, I would say. I hope in humanity, hope in men and women, just hope in
Mm.
humanity. Because I often call him as like old soul. I'm sure it has to do with growing up as a only child. Yeah, wrong adults, my mom, my mom, all the adults. And so that's an advantage there, some maturity there, but it was to see it's a corrective experience. These men are not that awful, and look at this, and how can
Mhm.
we nurture this so that we create and contribute to a society. And even to his dad, my father passed when my son was 3, because if not, I'm sure he would have been impacting grandpa too, to be a better man. And also he's doing that for his father now, 100%. And for me as a female, just to not lose faith in men and to have this different view and hope of humanity and healing, the healing of the male energy is
Mm.
what came through my son. And I'm sure I wanted 4 kids. And
Wow.
hopefully there would have been a girl in there. I was open to that healing with what the female energy would bring. I just didn't have that experience. I wasn't able to have any more children. But so grateful for that because definitely it's such a learning experience and the healing that comes through him as
Mm.
a female.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that closeness, like, I don't know, I felt it in the womb. It's like, wow, this is a boy. And we're about to
Mm.
do some healing, some journey with the male energy and the wounding that I already had experienced. So I was almost like bracing myself. Like, what is this boy gonna teach me as a mom, as a woman?
Mhm.
I was a little nervous also because it's me and my sister, so I didn't grow up with men.
Neither did I.
I was a 3-year-old, when my mom became single mom. So I was very kind of intimidated at first, but it was pretty flowing because I think the mission was on, he came on a mission and I was like, okay, come on, let's learn together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I agree. It is something, and that's why I said that, my daughter's relationship and even there's just it's different. Not neither one is better than the other. They're just different,
Mm.
very different. But specifically with him, it's been a healing journey. Like as he grows, I grow. Um, as he's in therapy and he's going through his stuff, then it's making me say, oh, you might that might be some things to address for yourself as well. And then watching him now mature into a man because he's a man is also another piece that is requiring me to do some additional work. Um, so I don't really know how to say that, but I agree with you, Michelle. It's definitely a healing process when you have a son. And maybe because they teach you the opposite side of what you know. I don't know.
Mm.
Oh,
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. I'm honing in on that word, Mashara, you said about different and remembering your journey specifically about becoming a mother at 17 and how it was just different in survival mode. And so
absolutely.
being a mother at 17, knowing what you know now and thinking about maybe other mothers who started their journey to parenthood young, what words of wisdom would you put out there? What things would you even tell yourself, would your now self tell your 17-year-olds?
Um, so it's funny because I just said their ages, and I can promise you that it just seemed like they grew up so quick. And so that's what happens when you're in survival mode. You really don't get to, I mean, we've had a lot of amazing experiences, but you really don't get to live in those moments because I got to focus on what's next. So the first thing I would say is I know that as a young mom, survival mode is instinctive because you're trying to make it. And I would do what I could to make sure that I kind of stay in that moment with my children as much as I could. Because again, they grew up so quick. One day I was pregnant, the next day we walking across the stage in high school is literally how it felt. Like it just happened so fast. And then the second thing I would also say is we often say we want to be the best that we can be. Um, so do that.
Mm.
Do that. If that requires you to get some counseling, if it requires you to do some self-work, like do that. Because literally being the best version or the best parent you can be is working on you. Um and working through your stuff so that you don't necessarily trickle it down to your children. So I think those would be my two things.
Mm. Amazing. That's amazing.
Oh,
Mhm.
and never always apologize too. I think one of the things that we don't do as parents is apologize to our children when we realize because we don't know what we don't know. But when you realize that, and I'm not even gonna say you did something wrong, that you just did something that you did what you knew, right? And so when you know better, you do better. But being able to own that and go to your children and say, listen, this is what I was taught and this is how I was raised or this is what I thought was right. And I know that now after doing my own work, it may not be like as an adult mom to hear my mom say some things to me is very healing for me. Right. So to be able to do that for your own children and not have to be on your deathbed and do it
Ah,
so
yes.
you all can build a better relationship, do it.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
That is some healing right there.
Yes,
Uh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not waiting for the deathbed.
Not waiting for the
I
deathbed. Like
love that. I
we don't
use
need
that.
confessionals when we dying.
Come
Like if
on.
we could bring it up now,
Yes.
that gives you so much more time to build a stronger relationship and foundation, right? So we don't have to, if you know it and you can address it, then address it so we can move on. I told my children from the day they were born, and I said it jokingly to me, Dr. T, because I'm funny. And I was like, listen, I'm sure that in your life I will do some things that is going to F you up. Okay. And you're gonna need to sit on somebody's sofa. I will come sit on the sofa with you because I mean, what else can I do?
Yeah.
Right? I only can do what I know.
Yeah.
And so at some point in your life, you may need to see somebody, and you need to talk about your mama. If you need your mama there, she'll be there because
Awesome.
I only can do what I know.
Mhm.
When I know better, you do better. So
Right.
that's it.
That
That's
is
it.
so healing. That
Yeah.
if that is that kernel right there can heal generations. That
Right.
kernel right there. Because so often as adults, we carry with us the pains, the memories, and the experiences of our childhood. And what can be so painful, just think about it. If you talk to somebody, if somebody hurt you, wronged you, and you say to them, this hurt, you wronged me, and they say back to you, that didn't hurt you. They didn't bother you.
Mm.
Like, you're so in a space of trying to confirm that you were hurt that you don't even get to stay in the acknowledgement of your own pain. You move into defense in trying to prove that, like just on this inevitable quest to prove. Now imagine something happening to you at 12, at 10, at 9, and you keep trying to say to the parent or caregiver, that hurt me. And that
Hmm.
parent or caregiver keeps saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You ain't nothing
You don't
hurt
know
me.
what hurt is.
Right, right. You don't know what hurt is.
Oh,
You know
you'll
what
be all
hurt is.
right.
Right,
You'll
right,
be all right.
right. You don't know what hurt is. Let me tell you about hurt. Hurt was
Right.
when and then they put on them.
Right.
And so you have that 9-year-old who's now 29, who's 39, who's still looking for somebody, really that parent to just acknowledge,
Right.
baby, you're right. I did hurt you. And that's all they need to just unlock and heal and move, but spend so many years in this pain and they don't even realize it. It
Right.
puts out in trying to prove themselves, to prove their worth, high anxiety,
Yes.
depression, all those things when you really just needed somebody to turn that key and say, I acknowledge.
Mhm.
That's all they needed was acknowledge.
Right.
So for you saying that right there, Michelle Bianca,
Mm.
that was a kernel. That is something
Yeah.
that I hear. Thank you for that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, I know I have asked all the questions. Um, and I don't want to, because this is a conversation I know that I could talk about for so long because it impacts at so many levels.
Mhm.
Um, but what I want to do, we're ready to close this out, but I want to just open it up to say anything else that you feel is so helpful, that's so important to share, whether it is the knowledge, the kernels that you've learned along the way that you want to impart to someone else, whether it is something that you're saying you're still learning, you're navigating through, whatever it might be, especially anything that helps those parents that are still putting themselves on the back burner,
Mm.
whatever that might be, just open it up and share your closing thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to say something about that and the burnout that I've experienced and sometimes experience because I'm still learning. The overcompensating that we tend to do as a single parent.
Mm.
And I'm talking about overdoing. And it's okay. I got the laundry and I got this, and I was doing so much. And I was not helping my child learn. I felt like I was being such a good mother by overdoing. I got this. I don't want my child to have to suffer more. And there's these ideas that I had in the back of in the past, poor child. He suffered enough. I pitied him. Sometimes I still
Mm.
do. I hate that. So it's like getting away from that. That energy is so dense and low. It doesn't help anyone. So we want to look at our children with love and with hope. for the future and not pity them and then almost like hurt them. I don't know what I'm thinking about a different word, but it's counterproductive. We burn ourselves out and they are then lacking a lot of skills that now at 8, at 16, we're learning how to do laundry.
Mm.
But that should have started a long time ago. In my practice, I see kids that are 26 who don't know how to do laundry because they were not taught, and we mothers were doing too much, trying to compensate and make it better for them somehow. And that was a big mistake. Or buying things that were too expensive so that he could fit in. And I know that's a big peer pressure with all, even if it's an intact family unit, the peer pressure's on. But again, overcompensating with Jordans and shoes when this kid was 8, and I look at it now, it's like, wow, it was double work for me and then hindrance for him. I did some damage there because then now in high school and this came out in therapy, anger. Like, yeah, thanks a lot, mom. Now I gotta learn all these things. And even
Wow.
though he enjoyed the freedom and the privilege of having everything done to him, now it's a little embarrassing. Thanks a lot, mom. I don't know how to do this. And in front of my girlfriend or in front of my therapist, now I look like a fool and a spoiled brat kind of thing. So that was very, very eye-opening for me when we were in therapy, and it came from his voice and kind of the therapist too, like, mom, it's time to stop. I was like, yes, thank you. And I was embarrassed. I was a little hurt. I was like, well, how did I miss that? But I understand now that I was overcompensating
Yeah.
and I was pitying him.
Yeah.
And that was not helpful. Now that's now I'm in that healing, in damage control, and healing that part that came and surfaced, and he was able to verbalize it. But now I want to share that with other people, and especially Puerto Rican mothers. I just have that bias because that's the culture I grew up in. I know we can overcome, but we can just spoil our kids even in a intact family, that the kids can do no wrong, and the poor kids, gotta baby them. We're not helping them. One thing is giving them love and one thing is overdoing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take away their love. I don't think you can spoil anybody with too much love, but you can spoil them with overdoing and doing too much for them and not giving them responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main thing I want to share about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I think what I would share is to go back when we spoke about not asking for help or feeling like we can't ask for help and feeling like we have to carry this cross on our own. Um, One of the things that I always did was make sure that my kids were in groups, like mentoring groups and community activities, because I knew I didn't have it all, right?
Yes.
So learn to, I know it's hard, but learn to first, even if you can't ask an individual for help, look at what's available in your community. So my son, again, we didn't have a lot of men around and his dad was back and forth, but I knew that one of the things he needed was to be around men. So I found a mentoring group for young boys ran by men so that he can be connected to men, because I understood there were going to be times and conversations and things that I just couldn't, I couldn't teach him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yes.
because I can't, right? So that would be one thing that I would say is, even if you can't necessarily ask an individual for help, see what's available in your community that can support you in raising your children and give you some more support, and give them another support system. Um,
Yes.
and then I will also say, disregard everything you've already learned.
Mm.
Parenting is different. I don't care what anybody else says. I know people have written books about this is how you do it. But just because it worked for those 99 people, I promise you, it's going to be the 100th person that it does not work for. So figure out what works best for you and your children, you and your children. Um, and so it may not look like what everyone else says it should look like. It may not look like the way you were raised.
Mhm.
But what works best for you and your children, and go
Mhm.
that way.
Mm.
And ask your children. They can tell you. I love that your son told you he needed counseling. He was
Yes.
open. Speak to your children. They can tell you what they need better than anybody else can. And listen. to
Yes.
them. They saying they need counseling. Counseling.
Do it.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think for me that's the biggest thing is people are always saying you're not supposed to be friends with your children, but I wanted to be friends with my children.
Mm.
I mean, why wouldn't I? You get what I'm saying? Like I wanted them to actually like me as a parent. There were times when they did not, but but allow your children the space and opportunity to express who they are with you. And then you decide as a parent what works best for you. Um, because some of the ways we were taught and the things we were taught may not be the best way for your child. So
Yeah.
that's that.
Ah,
I love
ladies,
that.
this
Yes.
is wonderful. That was wonderful.
Yes.
MiShara, your closing points. Michelle, your closing points. Such kernels. Everything that you shared has just been phenomenal. Thank you, thank you, thank you as individuals, as professionals, as human beings, as mothers. Thank you for everything that you have done and everything that you do. To my own mother, I'll take an opportunity to say, Mom, Bertina, you did that. You did that. I see you. I love you. I acknowledge you. I exalt you. Yes, thank you. I love you. And to every mother who is watching this, to all the parents who are watching this, you are not alone. You can do this. You will do this. There is support, believe it or not. So reach out, as MiShara said, to community, reach out to therapy in your community, wherever you are. If you're in Central Florida, Hope and Serenity Health Services is here. If you want to see Michelle, she is a therapist with our practice. Reach out. You get to talk to Michelle. We are here to support you, to encourage you, whatever you need, and your children too. So
Absolutely.
again,
Yes.
yeah, again, ladies, thank you. For those of you who want to reach out to MiShara Bianca with her wisdom, her knowledge, and all the things she's done, you have the contact information. So reach out. We are happy to be of support to you. So thank you all. I appreciate you. Y'all take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Sure.